On the 20th strike, Amelia Whittaker stopped begging and started counting what her husband would lose. The cane came down across her shoulder with a crack that sliced through the marble living room. Her knees hit the floor. One hand clutched the edge of the broken coffee table, the other pressed against the torn sleeve of her pale silk robe. Grant Mercer stood over her, breathing hard, his black tie loosened, his expensive shirt carrying the perfume of another woman. Serena Cross. Amelia knew the scent now. White, jasmine, amber. Something sweet enough to rot. Grant lifted the cane again. It was old hickory with a silver handle, a Mercer family heirloom from a time when his ancestors still had money and manners. He had once shown it to Amelia with pride, saying it symbolized discipline, legacy, control. Tonight, he had used it to punish his wife for asking why his mistress was wearing Amelia's necklace in a company photo. "Do you understand now?" Grant snarled. His dark hair had fallen over his forehead. His handsome face, the one investors trusted and magazines loved, was twisted into something small and cruel. Amelia looked up at him through a blur of pain. She was 35, with auburn hair spilling loose over one shoulder, gray eyes gone bright from shock, and a split lip she refused to touch. She had been beautiful in a quiet way that Grant used to call elegant. Lately, he called it boring. "You hit me for her," Amelia whispered. Grant's mouth tightened. "For once in your life, stop acting like a victim." The sentence was worse than the cane. He tossed the hickory stick onto the rug as if he were done with a difficult chore. The silver handle struck the floor beside her hand. "You embarrassed me," he said. "You questioned me in front of Serena. You made me look controlled." Amelia tried to breathe evenly. Her ribs burned. Grant adjusted his cuffs, almost calm now. That frightened her more than his rage. "Serena understands what this company needs. She understands ambition. She does not sit at home in old sweaters pretending moral superiority is a career." Amelia stared at him. 7 years earlier, Grant had eaten instant noodles with her in a rented studio above a laundry shop. He had cried when his first prototype failed. He had held her hands and promised he would never forget who believed in him, before the world did. Amelia had believed him. She had sold jewelry. She had emptied savings. She had walked away from the Whittaker family board when her father warned her Grant wanted access, not love. She had hidden her last name from investors because Grant said he wanted to build Helix One on merit. Now Helix One was worth billions. And Grant Mercer believed the wife who helped build it was disposable. He crouched near her, voice low. "Listen carefully. Tomorrow is the anniversary gala. The board will be there. The banks will be there. The press will be there. You will stay home. If you show up and start some jealous scene, I will make sure every person in that room knows Richard Whittaker disowned you." Amelia's fingers curled around the rug. "He did not disown me." Grant smiled. "Then why has no one seen him with you in 7 years?" Pain moved through her body, sharp and hot. Her father had not disowned her. She had left. There was a difference. Grant leaned closer. "Without me, you are nothing but a woman who chose wrong and has nowhere to go." For a moment the room was completely still. Rain tapped against the windows of the penthouse. The city glowed beyond the glass. Somewhere in the hallway the elevator chimed faintly for another floor. Amelia looked at the cane. A drop of her blood had dried on the silver handle. Grant stood, picked up his phone, and walked toward the door. "Clean yourself up," he said, "and think about whether you want to keep this marriage." The door slammed behind him. Amelia lay on the floor for almost a minute. Then she laughed once. It came out broken. Barely a sound. Keep the marriage. He had struck her 20 times for his mistress, threatened her in her own home, and thought the choice still belonged to him. Slowly, painfully, Amelia reached for the cane. She did not throw it away. She wrapped it in the torn sleeve of her robe and dragged herself toward the sofa, leaving small red marks across the pale rug. Her phone was under a cushion. She found it with shaking fingers. There were missed messages from Grant, one from 10 minutes earlier. "Do not make me regret being patient with you." Amelia stared at it. Then she opened another contact. She had not called the number in 7 years. Her thumb hovered. When the call connected, no greeting came first. Only the sound of a glass being set down too hard. "Amelia?" a man said. Her father's voice. Old. Controlled. Suddenly afraid. Amelia closed her eyes. "Dad," she said, her voice flat from pain. "I need a doctor, a lawyer, and every voting proxy you still hold in Helix 1. A silence. Then Richard Whittaker spoke again, and the softness was gone. "Who hurt you?" Amelia looked at the hickory cane beside her. "My husband." Chapter 2. The medical team arrived in 12 minutes. Grant had believed Amelia was alone because he had trained himself to believe it. He thought the lack of family photos meant abandonment. He thought her silence about Whittaker Capital meant shame. He thought the modest clothes, the old recipes, the way she checked on office assistants and remembered birthdays all proved she had no power left. He was wrong on every count. The private elevator opened, and 3 paramedics entered with 2 security officers and a tall woman in a charcoal suit. The woman's name was Marin Vale, general counsel for Whittaker Capital. Her silver blonde hair was pulled into a severe knot, and her expression did not change when she saw Amelia on the floor. Only her eyes did. They hardened. "Mrs. Mercer," Marin said. "Not for much longer," Amelia whispered. Marin knelt beside her. "Your father is downstairs. The cardiologist insisted he not come up until you are stabilized." Amelia tried to sit, then gasped. One paramedic gently held her shoulder. "Please do not move." Marin's gaze went to the cane wrapped in torn silk. "Is that the weapon?" "Yes." "Did he know there were cameras in this room?" Amelia shut her eyes. Grant had forgotten because Grant never paid attention to anything he believed belonged to him. The penthouse security system had been installed by Whittaker Capital after the first year of marriage, when Grant claimed a rival founder had threatened him. The cameras were discreet. Grant had called them paranoid. Amelia had kept paying the subscription. "No," Amelia said. Marin looked at one of the security officers. "Preserve everything. Living room footage, hallway footage, elevator access, audio if available. No one enters this residence except our team." The officer nodded. The paramedics lifted Amelia onto a stretcher. She bit down on the inside of her cheek to keep from crying out. Her pride was not vanity. It was all she had left that Grant had not touched. As they wheeled her toward the elevator, she looked once at the living room. Broken glass. The cane. A smear of blood on the white rug. Grant's cufflink on the floor, glittering under the lamp like a tiny piece of evidence. "Take that too," she murmured. Marin followed her gaze. The lawyer picked up the cufflink with a tissue and placed it in an evidence bag. In the private clinic, doctors documented everything. Bruises across her back and arms, 2 cuts requiring stitches, a cracked rib, a mild concussion, defensive wounds on her forearm where she had raised it to protect her face. The physician, Dr. Helen Moore, spoke in a calm voice, but her jaw was tight. "These injuries are consistent with repeated strikes from a narrow, blunt object." Marin stood near the bed, writing nothing down because the room was being recorded with Amelia's consent. "Can that be stated in a formal report?" "Yes." "Can the report be completed by morning?" Dr. Moore looked at Amelia, then at the bruises along her collarbone. "It can be completed tonight." Amelia lay still beneath the white sheets. Her body felt distant, as if pain had pushed her mind into another room. The clinic door opened. Richard Whittaker entered in a wheelchair. He was 71, with white hair, broad shoulders still straight beneath a dark overcoat, and eyes that had made stronger men choose honesty. To Wall Street, he was the founder of Whittaker Capital, a patient investor with a reputation for buying companies only after their owners had underestimated him. To Amelia, he had once been the man who taught her to ride a bicycle and clap, once, when she finally stopped falling. Now he looked at her face, her bandaged arm, the shadow of the cane mark near her throat. His hand gripped the wheelchair arm so hard his knuckles turned white. 20, Amelia said before he could ask. Richard's eyes closed. When he opened them, they were wet. "My child." Amelia turned her head away. The tenderness hurt more than the bruises. "I should have called sooner. Yes, he said. She looked back, startled by the blunt answer. Richard rolled closer. You should have called the first time. I should have come the first time. We can spend the rest of our lives arguing about pride, but tonight is not for that. Her mouth trembled. He reached for her hand and held it carefully, avoiding the bandage. Tonight is for evidence. Amelia stared at him. For the first time since Grant raised the cane, something inside her steadied. Richard leaned forward. Tell me what you want. The old Amelia might have asked him to ruin Grant. The hurt daughter might have asked him to make the pain mean something. The wife who had crawled across marble might have asked for revenge so loud the city could hear it. But the woman lying in that bed understood something sharper. Grant expected rage. He expected tears. He expected a private divorce he could dismiss as a jealous wife's breakdown. Amelia would not give him privacy. Tomorrow night is the Helix 1 anniversary gala, she said. I know. Grant told me to stay home because Serena will sit beside him. Richard's face darkened. Amelia's fingers tightened around his. Let him go on stage. Let her sit in my seat. Let the board, the banks, and the press watch him smile. Marin looked up. Amelia's voice grew steadier. Then give me the room. Chapter 3, Serena Cross, woke in Grant's spare apartment, believing she had won. The apartment was on the 42nd floor of a glass building near Bryant Park, leased under a Helix 1 subsidiary, and furnished with corporate funds she had categorized as executive hospitality expenses. Serena liked that phrase, executive hospitality. It sounded so much cleaner than Mistress. She stood before the mirror in a champagne-colored robe, brushing her honey blonde hair over one shoulder. She was 31, with blue eyes, a precise little nose, and a smile that could move from wounded to seductive in less than a second. Grant said she was brilliant. Some of that was true. Serena had risen from financial analyst to CFO because she understood numbers and men. Numbers revealed weakness. Men revealed weakness faster if she let them believe desire was respect. Grant's weakness was pride. He wanted to be admired more than he wanted to be safe. That made him easy. Her phone buzzed. A message from Grant. She will not come tomorrow. Your seat is confirmed. Serena smiled. Finally. For 3 years, she had watched Amelia Mercer appear in company photos like a ghost in beige. Quiet wife, soft smile, no influence, no edge. A woman men forgot before the camera flash faded. Serena hated her anyway. Not because Amelia fought. Amelia barely fought. Because Grant still softened when her name came up, and Serena could not tolerate sharing even the ghost of a man she intended to own. Another message arrived. Do not wear the emerald necklace. Too obvious. Serena looked at the jewelry case on the dresser. Inside lay emeralds set in white gold. Amelia's necklace. Grant had given it to Serena 6 months earlier, after claiming it had been stored away and forgotten. Serena knew enough not to ask who had forgotten it. She wore it often in private. Once, she wore it in a cropped company photo on purpose, just enough of the stones visible to make Amelia notice. That was when Amelia asked questions. That was when Grant lost control. Serena touched the necklace and smiled. Too obvious, he said. Men like Grant never understood the point of humiliation. It had to be visible enough to hurt and deniable enough to survive. She selected diamond earrings instead. Then she opened her laptop. Helix 1 financial dashboard. Liquidity pressure rising. Debt covenant review pending. Sterling Bridge facility renewal due in 48 hours. Serena's smile faded. That renewal mattered. When Helix 1 nearly collapsed 6 years earlier, a private financing vehicle had saved it. Grant insisted the investor was a silent fund with no interest in management. Serena had traced layers of entities for months and found only one name buried in the old documents. Whitaker. At first, she assumed it was coincidence. Then she found Amelia's maiden name. Whitaker. Grant laughed when Serena brought it up. Her father cut her off, he said. Old Richard has not spoken to her in years. Serena believed him because she wanted to, but belief was not proof. She had pushed Grant for months to remove Amelia from company events, divorce her quietly, and restructure his shares before the bridge renewal. If Amelia had any hidden claim, they needed to isolate her before she woke up. Last night, Grant had called from the penthouse, voice shaking with anger and adrenaline. She will not be a problem. Serena did not ask what he had done. She should have. At 9 in the morning, her assistant forwarded a short note from the Gala planner. Mrs. Mercer's seat has been reassigned to Ms. Cross per CEO instruction. Serena read it 3 times. Then she sent back one line, print the cards. Chapter 4 Grant walked into Helix 1 headquarters at 10 o'clock as if nothing had happened. That was his second mistake. The first had been hitting Amelia. The second was believing the world would remain the same because he needed it to. He crossed the lobby in a tailored gray suit, waving to employees, smiling at investors on the visitor list, pretending not to notice that people lowered their voices after he passed. The lobby screen displayed the Gala announcement. 7 years of Helix 1 innovation. His face appeared beside the company logo. Founder. Visionary. Keynote speaker. Grant paused long enough to admire it. Then his phone rang. Marin Vale. He frowned. He did not know her number, but he knew the name. She had appeared in early financing documents years ago, one of those severe lawyers attached to the silent fund that never asked questions as long as returns arrived. Grant Mercer, he answered. Mr. Mercer, this is Marin Vale, counsel for Whitaker Capital. He kept walking. I am busy. I am calling regarding Amelia Mercer. His steps slowed. What about her? She is under medical care. Grant's jaw tightened. My wife is dramatic. There was a pause. Are you stating for the record that injuries requiring stitches and documented blunt force trauma are dramatic? The words hit him like cold water. He stepped into an empty conference room and shut the door. What do you want? At this stage, preservation of evidence, you are instructed not to enter the penthouse, delete communications, contact Mrs. Mercer directly, or alter corporate records relating to Serena Cross, executive expenses, related party transactions, or the Gala seating change. His hand went cold. What the hell does Serena have to do with this? That will be determined. Grant laughed, too loud. You lawyers love drama. Amelia and I had a marital disagreement. She is emotional. Mr. Mercer, emotional women do not fracture their own ribs with antique canes. Silence. Grant looked toward the glass wall. Outside, his employees moved through the hallway, carrying coffee, folders, and lives that depended on the company he thought he controlled. You are making a mistake, he said. No, Marin replied. You made one. We are documenting it. The call ended. Grant stood very still. Then he called Serena. She answered at once. Is everything ready? We may have a problem. What kind? Amelia called her family. Serena did not speak for 2 seconds. Which family? Grant's anger flared because fear had no other place to go. Do not start. Grant, answer me. The Whitakers. Serena's voice dropped. I told you to verify whether she was really cut off. She was. Apparently not. Grant slammed his palm against the table. She has no power. Even if her father sends lawyers, this is a private matter. Serena inhaled sharply. There is no such thing as a private matter when a controlling lender is involved. He froze. What did you say? Nothing. No, Serena. What controlling lender? She closed her eyes on the other end. Grant's voice grew quiet. What did you find? Serena made a choice. Not a loyal one. A practical one. Whitaker Capital may be connected to the bridge facility. Grant sat down slowly. The bridge facility was not just debt. It was the oxygen beneath Helix One's valuation. Without it, the company could breach covenants, trigger bank reviews, and panic investors before the merger vote. You said it was probably coincidence? He whispered. You said her father disowned her. Grant saw Amelia on the floor again. The torn robe. The cane. Her eyes when she stopped pleading. For the first time, memory did not make him angry. It made him afraid. Chapter 5. The gala began at 7. By then, Amelia was already in the building. Not in the ballroom. Not on the red carpet. Not where Grant could see her and adjust. She was in a private holding room above the main hall, sitting in a high-backed chair while a makeup artist gently covered the bruise near her cheekbone. The dress was black. Not mourning black, judgment black. Long sleeves hid the bandages on her arms. A high neckline covered the worst of the marks near her collarbone. The fabric was matte and severe, falling cleanly to the floor. Her auburn hair was pinned low. Her face was pale, but composed. Maren stood nearby with a tablet. Richard Whittaker sat beside the window, no wheelchair tonight, though his doctor had argued. He wore a dark suit and carried a cane of his own, plain black, used for walking only. He watched his daughter in the mirror. "You do not have to do this." Amelia met his eyes through the reflection. "Yes, I do. For justice? For truth." He nodded slowly. Maren read from the tablet. Grant arrived with Serena at 6:40. She is wearing a white gown, no emerald necklace. Amelia's mouth curved slightly. Disappointing. She is seated at your original table. Good. Richard frowned. Good? If she had been moved, she could claim ignorance. Maren continued. The board is present. Primary lenders are present. 2 reporters from the financial ledger are present by invitation. Dr. Moore's medical report is signed. The preservation order has been served. The penthouse footage is queued. The expense audit is queued. The shareholder documents are ready. Amelia looked down at her hands. They trembled once. She clasped them together. Pain still moved through her body in waves. Standing would hurt. Walking would hurt. Smiling would be impossible. But Grant had counted on her pain to keep her hidden. That alone made her stand. Downstairs, Grant worked the room with Serena on his arm. The ballroom glittered. Chandeliers. White flowers. Champagne. A stage framed by blue light. On the screens, Helix One's logo rotated beside phrases like future, trust, connection, trust. Grant almost laughed at that. Serena touched his sleeve. You look tense. I am fine. You are sweating. He pulled his arm away. Not now. Her eyes narrowed, but she recovered as a photographer approached. Grant smiled for the camera. Serena leaned close. The reporter asked, Where is Mrs. Mercer tonight? Grant's stomach tightened. He gave the line he had prepared. Amelia is recovering from a minor fall at home. She insisted the company should be celebrated without distraction. Serena added softly, She has always preferred staying behind the scenes. The reporter smiled. And you, Miss Cross? You are taking a more public role? Serena's hand rested lightly on Grant's arm. I go where I am useful. Grant heard a faint murmur behind him. Arthur Bell, chairman of the board, approached with 2 lenders. He was an older man with a careful face and a low tolerance for scandal. Grant, Arthur said. A word before the keynote? Of course. Arthur glanced at Serena. Privately, Serena's smile stiffened. Grant stepped aside with Arthur. The older man lowered his voice. We received a preservation notice from Whittaker Counsel. Grant forced a laugh. A domestic misunderstanding. Arthur's eyes chilled. It mentions blunt force trauma. Grant's mouth dried. It is being exaggerated. Then you should welcome a review. Grant stared at him. Before he could answer, the lights dimmed. The gala director stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Tonight, we celebrate 7 years of Helix One and the leadership that brought us here. Applause spread across the room. Grant straightened his jacket. This was still his stage. He would speak. He would control the narrative. He would announce the expansion, secure lender confidence, and deal with Amelia quietly afterward. Then the director continued. Before our keynote, we have a special address from a founding stakeholder whose early support made Helix One possible. Grant stopped breathing. Serena turned toward him. What is this? The ballroom doors opened. Amelia entered. Chapter 6. No one clapped at first. The silence was too shocked for politeness. Amelia walked into the ballroom slowly, flanked by Marin Vale on one side and Richard Whittaker on the other. She moved carefully because every step pulled at bruised muscle, but pain did something strange to her posture. It made her deliberate. The room saw a woman in black, pale but unbowed, with a face calm enough to frighten people who knew what calm cost. Grant stood near the stage, frozen. Serena's fingers dug into the edge of her chair. Amelia did not look at either of them. She walked to the front table, where a place card sat beside Grant's seat. Serena Cross. Amelia picked it up. The tiny sound of cardstock lifting from linen seemed to reach every corner of the ballroom. Then she looked at Serena. "You are in my seat." Serena recovered with a little laugh. The seating team must have made a mistake. "No," Amelia said. "Grant made it." Several heads turned toward him. Grant stepped forward. "Amelia, this is not the time." She looked at him then. Only once. The look stopped him. It was not the look of a wife asking why. It was the look of a creditor reviewing a bad loan. Amelia turned to the room. "I apologize for interrupting the program. I was told tonight was not my place." A murmur passed through the guests. Serena stood. "This is a private marital issue." Amelia's mouth tightened. "That is what people say when the evidence is ugly." Marin walked to the audio-visual table and handed a drive to the technician. The man looked toward Arthur Bell. Arthur nodded. Grant moved fast. "Do not play anything." Arthur stepped between him and the table. "Sit down, Grant. I am CEO. And I am chairman." Grant's face flushed. The screen behind the stage went black. Then the penthouse footage appeared. No music. No dramatic editing. Just the cold eye of a security camera. Grant entered the living room in the same suit he wore now. Amelia stood near the sofa in a pale robe. His mouth moved. The audio filled the ballroom. "You embarrassed me in front of Serena." The first strike landed. A collective gasp broke across the room. Serena sat down hard. Grant's face turned gray. On screen, Amelia staggered. Grant raised the cane again. The footage did not play all 20 strikes. Amelia had chosen that. The medical report would carry the number. The room only needed enough to understand. The screen froze on Grant holding the cane, his face twisted in rage. Then a new slide appeared. Medical report. 20 impact injuries. Defensive wounds. Cracked rib, lacerations. Blunt force trauma consistent with hickory cane recovered at scene. Amelia stood very still. Not because she felt no shame, because shame belonged to the man on the screen. Grant looked around wildly. "This is edited." Marin lifted a folder. "The original has been preserved and provided to counsel." Grant pointed at Amelia. "She provoked me." The words left his mouth before he understood what they sounded like. Arthur Bell stared at him with open disgust. A lender at the front table closed his notebook. Serena whispered, "Grant, stop." Amelia heard her. She turned. "Now you want him to stop?" Serena's lips parted. Amelia stepped closer to the table. "You wore my necklace in a company photograph. You took my seat tonight. You let him tell people I was too unstable to appear in public. You do not get to look surprised when public arrives." Serena's face went red beneath her makeup. "I did not make him hit you." "No," Amelia said. "You only helped him believe I had no one left to call." Chapter 7, the first reaction was horror. The second was calculation. That was how boardrooms worked, even when disguised as galas. Grant knew it. Amelia knew it better. She had watched these people for years from the edges of rooms. She knew who cared about morality, who cared about liability, and who cared only when the two overlapped. So she gave them both. Marin changed the slide. Expense audit. A list appeared. Corporate apartment leased for Serena Cross. Jewelry purchases billed as executive retention. Luxury travel booked under investor relations. Unapproved bonuses authorized by Grant Mercer. Transfers approved by Serena Cross to shell vendors. The ballroom shifted again. Serena stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "That is confidential financial material." Marin's voice cut across the room. "It is board material. You are not the board." Serena looked at Grant. He did not look back. That was when her confidence cracked. Amelia watched it happen and felt no pleasure, only clarity. Serena had believed she was chosen because she was special. In truth, she was useful to a man who used everyone until the bill arrived. Arthur Bell faced Serena. "Did you approve these transfers?" Serena lifted her chin. Every transfer was within CFO discretion. "Not if tied to personal benefit," Marin said. Serena laughed sharply. "This is a smear campaign by a bitter wife." Amelia nodded once. That would be convenient. Another slide appeared. Photographs. Serena entering the corporate apartment with Grant. Serena wearing Amelia's emerald necklace. Serena at a Hamptons property purchased through a vendor account. Serena holding a little boy on a lawn beside Grant. Grant closed his eyes. The room saw the child. A new murmur moved through the crowd, sharper now. Amelia's voice stayed even. For 3 years, Grant Mercer and Serena Cross conducted an affair while Miss Cross served as chief financial officer of Helix One. During that time, company funds were used for personal housing, travel, jewelry, and property improvements. Those records have been turned over to auditors. Serena's eyes flashed. "You dragged a child into this?" "No," Amelia said. "You hid expenses behind one." Grant stepped toward Amelia. "Enough." Richard Whittaker moved for the first time. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Take one more step toward my daughter, and the assault footage becomes the least of your problems tonight." Grant stared at him. Richard Whittaker. The man Grant had convinced himself was irrelevant. Old. Estranged, too proud to help the daughter who had left him. But Richard stood beside Amelia now, and the room recognized him before Grant fully did. The lenders straightened. Arthur Bell's face changed. Serena's eyes widened as she understood what Grant had failed to verify. Amelia turned to the room. "There is one final matter." Grant's voice came out hoarse. "Amelia." She did not look at him. For 7 years, Helix One has described its early survival as the result of founder discipline and market confidence. That is incomplete. Marin brought up the last set of documents. Whittaker Capital Bridge Facility, Preferred Share Agreement, Protective Covenants, Emergency Governance Rights. The room went silent. Amelia continued. 6 years ago, when Helix One missed payroll and failed its Series B funding round, a private vehicle funded by Whittaker Capital provided $80 million in rescue financing. That vehicle also holds preferred shares, lender rights, and emergency control provisions triggered by executive misconduct, fraud, or material reputational harm. Grant looked at Arthur. Arthur would not meet his eyes. Amelia finally faced her husband. "You told me my father cut me off. You told yourself the same lie until it became useful. But the money you called your genius had my family's name under it." Grant's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Amelia's voice lowered. "You struck your wife 20 times for your mistress while standing inside a company that survived because that wife chose mercy." The words landed harder than the footage. For a moment, even Serena looked small. Chapter 8. The board vote took place in the same ballroom. That was not standard procedure. Marin made it standard with 3 folders, 2 emergency clauses, and Arthur Bell's visible disgust. Guests were moved to the far side of the hall. Reporters were told the program would resume after a governance announcement. Security stood near the exits. The Gala flowers remained on the tables, absurdly delicate beside the collapse of a billionaire founder. Grant sat at the front, with his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles whitened. Serena sat 3 chairs away, guarded now by 2 people from compliance. Amelia remained standing. She did not want to sit. Sitting would make it harder to breathe through the pain. Standing reminded her why she had come. Arthur read the resolution. Pending independent investigation into domestic violence, executive misconduct, misuse of corporate assets, and potential fraud, Grant Mercer is suspended as Chief Executive Officer of Helix One, effective immediately. Grant shot to his feet. "You cannot do this." Arthur did not flinch. "The vote is complete. I founded this company." Amelia's eyes met his. You founded a company, then you mistook it for a shield. Grant turned to the board members. All of you know what I built. You know what I am worth. A woman from the lender group spoke without emotion. We know what the covenants say. Marin stepped forward. Additionally, Whitaker Capital is issuing notice of default review on the bridge facility. All discretionary executive spending is frozen. All CFO-level transfer authority is suspended. All related party transactions involving Serena Cross are subject to forensic audit. Serena's face drained. She stood. You have no right to freeze my access. Marin looked at her. Your access was attached to Helix 1, not to you. Serena turned to Grant. Say something. Grant laughed once, bitter and cracked. What do you want me to say? That you told me to move faster? That you told me Amelia was weak? That you told me to get her out before Whitaker renewed the facility? Serena's expression changed. The room heard it. Moran looked almost satisfied. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. That admission has been noted. Grant realized, too late. He had spent years accusing Amelia of being emotional. Yet in the most important room of his life, he was the one who could not control his mouth. Serena backed away from him. You are blaming me? You pushed me. You hit her. For you. The sentence hung between them, obscene and useless. Amelia felt a strange emptiness open in her chest. There it was. The grand love story of Grant and Serena. Not passion, not destiny, just two selfish people throwing guilt back and forth once consequences arrived. The ballroom doors opened. 2 police officers entered with a detective, not a dramatic raid, no shouting, no weapons drawn, just law walking in at the exact pace of people who already had the paperwork. Detective Laura Kane approached Amelia first. Mrs. Mercer, are you prepared to make a statement? Grant's face twisted. Amelia, think carefully. She looked at him. All the old years passed through her then. Grant crying over failed prototypes. Grant asleep at a desk while she covered him with a blanket. Grant promising her the world. Grant apologizing after the first shove. Grant blaming stress. Grant blaming investors. Grant blaming her. Then the cane. 20 strikes. She turned to the detective. Yes, Amelia said. I am. Grant stepped toward her, but security caught him before he crossed the space. Amelia, he said, and for the first time his voice broke. Please. I lost control. She walked closer, stopping just beyond his reach. No, Grant. You lost ownership of the story. He stared at her. She touched the bandage hidden beneath her sleeve. You only lost control when the room saw what you did. Detective Kane nodded to the officers. Grant was escorted out through the same ballroom where investors had once applauded him. No one clapped now. No one defended him. As he passed Serena, he looked at her. She looked away. Chapter 9. Serena Cross tried to survive by changing sides. By morning, she had hired a crisis lawyer, issued a statement calling herself a woman manipulated by a violent man, and offered cooperation with the board review. By noon, Moran sent her lawyer 3 files. The first was the corporate apartment lease. The second was the shell vendor transfer chain. The third was a DNA report. Amelia had not ordered the DNA test. Grant had, secretly. 2 months earlier, after Serena pressured him to put the Hamptons' property into a trust for the child. He never told Serena the result. The boy was not Grant's. Grant had seen the report and hidden it because the truth humiliated him. He had continued protecting Serena publicly because admitting she had lied would mean admitting Amelia had been right. That was the kind of man he was. He would rather beat his wife than confess his mistress had fooled him. When Serena learned the report existed, she drove to the Whitaker clinic. Security stopped her in the lobby. Amelia was upstairs, reviewing a statement with Marin when the call came. Miss Cross is downstairs, the guard said. Marin looked at Amelia. Do you want her removed? Amelia considered it. No, put her in conference room 2. Serena was already pacing when Amelia entered. She looked different without the gala lighting. Her hair was still perfect, but her face was drawn. No diamonds. No corporate badge. No borrowed authority. You ruined my life, Serena said. Amelia closed the door behind her. No, I interrupted the version you were stealing. Serena's eyes flashed. Do not act holy. You were born rich, and you chose fraud. I did what I had to do. For what? A man? A seat? A necklace? Serena's mouth tightened. I was tired of watching women like you get everything quietly. Amelia looked at her for a long moment. That was the closest Serena had come to honesty. You thought quiet meant undeserved. Serena laughed bitterly. You had a father ready to send helicopters. You had lawyers, money, a name. Do you know what women like me have? Choices, Amelia said. You had choices. Serena stepped closer. Easy for you to say. No, Amelia replied. Not easy. True. The room went still. Amelia placed a folder on the table. Serena looked down. Her face changed when she saw the DNA report. Where did you get that? Grant had it. Serena reached for the folder, but Amelia kept her hand on it. He knew? Yes. Serena's eyes filled, not with sorrow, but fury. He knew and said nothing? He needed you useful. The words hit Serena hard because they were familiar. She had used the same principle on Grant. For once, she had no performance ready. Amelia took her hand off the folder. Quote, your lawyer will receive settlement terms. Return the jewelry. Cooperate with the audit. Provide every document involving the shell vendors and the Hamptons property. Do that, and the board may distinguish between fraud and conspiracy. Serena stared at her. Why would you offer me anything? Amelia's face was calm. Because I am not Grant. Serena swallowed. And if I refuse, then you will learn the difference between being humiliated and being prosecuted. Serena looked down at the DNA report again. Her voice dropped. He said you were weak. Amelia opened the door. He needed me to be. Chapter 10. 3 months later, Grant Mercer stood in a courtroom wearing a suit without cufflinks. That detail satisfied Amelia more than it should have. His wrists looked strangely bare. He had pleaded not guilty at first. Then the footage, the medical report, the cane, the preserved text messages, and Serena's cooperation changed his lawyer's advice. The assault charge moved forward. The corporate audit moved separately. Helix One removed him permanently. Whitaker Capital converted emergency rights into board control, stabilized the company, and appointed an interim CEO who knew the difference between leadership and appetite. Serena avoided prison by cooperating early, but lost her license, her position, the apartment, the house, and every illusion she had dressed as power. The emerald necklace was returned in a velvet evidence pouch. Amelia did not wear it. She sold it at a charity auction and used the money to fund emergency legal grants for women leaving violent marriages. On the day Grant signed the divorce settlement, he asked to speak to Amelia alone. Marin said no. Amelia said yes. They met in a courthouse consultation room with glass walls and 2 security officers outside. Grant looked smaller. Not physically. Something in his presence had collapsed. The cameras were gone. The board was gone. Serena was gone. Without an audience, he seemed unsure where to place his face. Amelia, he said. She sat across from him in a navy suit, her hair swept back, her hands folded on the table. The cane marks had faded, but not vanished. One faint line still crossed her forearm like a pale thread. Grant looked at it, then away. I am sorry, she waited. He swallowed. I know that is not enough. No. I was angry, I was scared. Serena got in my head. The company pressure was unbearable. Amelia's expression did not change. You still think explanations are currency? His eyes lifted. They are not? He asked, almost bitter. No. They are receipts. They show what you spent your character on. He flinched. For a moment, anger sparked. Then he forced it down. Consequences had taught him timing, if not remorse. I loved you once, he said. Amelia looked at the man who had been her whole world and felt the grief of realizing love had not been enough to make him decent. Maybe, she said. But you loved being above me more. He pressed his palms together. What happens to me now? That is no longer mine to decide. I lost everything. No, Amelia said softly. You lost what you thought protected you from accountability. His mouth tightened. She stood. He panicked then, as if her leaving the room made the ending real. Amelia, she paused at the door. If I had known your father still backed you, I would never have. He stopped. Too late. Amelia turned. There it was. The final confession, stripped of romance. He was not sorry he hurt her. He was sorry he miscalculated the cost. She opened the door. I know. Then she walked out. Chapter 11. A year later, Amelia returned to the penthouse. Not to live there. To empty it. The company had sold the property as part of a governance cleanup. The new buyer wanted it cleared by Friday. Amelia asked for 1 hour alone before the movers came. The living room looked different without the furniture. No sofa, no coffee table, no white rug, no glass vase. Sunlight fell across bare marble, bright and indifferent. For a while, Amelia stood in the doorway. She could still see herself on the floor. She could still hear the cane. But memory no longer owned the room. Near the window, a small evidence box sat on a folding table. Marin had brought it from storage at Amelia's request. Inside was the hickory cane. The silver handle had been cleaned for court, but Amelia knew where the blood had been. She touched the lid of the box, not the cane itself. Richard entered quietly behind her. He was moving better now, leaning on his black walking stick. Are you sure you want that? Amelia shook her head. No. What should we do with it? She looked out at the skyline. Keep it in the Foundation archive. Richard studied her. The Foundation had opened 6 months earlier. The Whitaker Safe Exit Fund provided medical documentation support, emergency housing, private security, divorce counsel, and financial planning for women whose partners used violence, money, or shame to trap them. Amelia had insisted on one line in the mission statement. Silence is not consent. Sometimes it is evidence being gathered. Richard had cried when he read it, though he denied that afterward. Now Amelia closed the evidence box. Let it remind people what powerful men do when they think no one will believe the woman on the floor. Richard's face tightened. I should have protected you sooner. She turned to him. I should have protected myself sooner. No. Yes, Amelia said gently. Both can be true. He looked at her, then nodded. For a while, father and daughter stood together in the empty penthouse. 7 years of distance sat between them. So did all the things they had chosen not to say. Pride. Fear. Love that arrived late but arrived. Finally, Richard held out his arm. Come home? Amelia smiled faintly. I am not going back to being someone's daughter either. His brows rose. She took his arm. I am going forward. Outside, the elevator doors opened for the movers. Amelia gave the room one last look. Grant had thought 20 strikes would silence her. Instead, each one became a document. The first became the medical report. The second became the police statement. The third became the board review. The fourth became the audit. The rest became the foundation, the women it would help, the doors it would open, the lives that would not have to crawl across marble to reach a phone. Pain did not make her powerful. She had always been powerful. Pain only stripped away the lie that love required her to hide it. As she stepped into the elevator beside her father, Amelia felt the old life close behind her, not with a slam, with a quiet click, the sound of a lock opening from the inside. Chapter 12. The next spring, Amelia stood at the front of a conference hall filled with women who had learned to keep their voices low. Some wore business suits. Some wore thrift store coats. Some had children beside them. Some held folders full of photographs, bank statements, medical records, text messages, and private grief turned into public proof. Behind Amelia, a screen displayed the Whitaker Safe Exit Fund logo. No crown, no shield, just an open door. Marin stood near the side wall. Richard sat in the front row. Dr. Moore, Detective Kane, and Jonah from Helix 1 were there too, each in their own way part of the record that had made Amelia's escape possible. Amelia stepped to the microphone. For a second, she saw Grant's Gala again. The lights. The stage. Serena in her seat. The room waiting to see whether she would break. She had broken. That was the truth. But she had not stayed broken. "My name is Amelia Whitaker," she said. "For years I believed endurance was proof of love. I believed leaving would mean admitting I had chosen wrong. I believed silence made me dignified." The hall was still. "Then one night, my silence almost killed me." Richard lowered his head. Amelia continued. "What saved me was not money alone. It was evidence. It was one doctor who wrote the truth. One lawyer who preserved the footage. One detective who listened. One family member who answered the phone. One moment when I finally understood that shame belongs to the person who harms, not the person who survives." A woman in the second row wiped her eyes. Amelia's voice steadied. "The world often asks why women stay. That is the wrong first question. The better question is who benefits from making it hard to leave." The room changed. Not loud, not dramatic. Awake. Amelia looked across the faces before her. "We cannot rewrite the night that brought us here. But we can decide what happens after. We can turn injury into evidence, evidence into action, and action into doors other women can walk through sooner." She paused. Then she smiled. Small, real, free. No one gets to call your survival an overreaction. No one gets to make your pain a private inconvenience. And no one, no matter how powerful he thinks he is, gets to own the story of what he did to you. The applause began slowly. Then it rose. Not like a gala. Not like investors applauding profit. This was different. This was recognition. Amelia stepped back from the microphone and looked at her father. Richard was clapping with one hand pressed against his chest, as if holding himself together. Marin leaned toward him and said something Amelia could not hear. He laughed through tears. For the first time in years, Amelia did not feel like the woman Grant had left on the floor. She felt like the woman who stood up and made the floor testify. Subscribe for more emotional stories about betrayal, hidden strength, and justice, served with evidence, dignity, and power.